Hello, and welcome back to the SimTech podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of clinical simulation, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Craig, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by a very special guest from across the pond. Joining me on the mic is Aaron, a simulation technician based in Canada, who's bringing a fresh, international perspective to the work we do behind the scenes in healthcare education. We're going to talk about how simulation is run in his part of the world, the differences and similarities in our day-to-day roles, and how the field is evolving globally. Whether you're a seasoned SimTech, just starting out, or simply curious about how other teams operate around the world, this is one episode you won't want to miss. So, let's jump into it. Hello and welcome to another episode at the SimTech podcast. Today we are jumping behind the scenes and getting to know some members of its community. And I've brought along a guest to do that. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Aaron. I work at Thompson Rivers University as a simulation technician. I'm located in British Columbia, Canada, way over on the West Coast.
Wow, I think you might be my first Canadian to come on. I've had a few. I've had a few Americans, and I know you guys are connected, but that's about it. Whereabouts in the grand scheme of the map are you? You said you're on the west side.
Yeah, so Kamloops is located in kind of the interior of British Columbia. West to east, we're kind of in the middle of the province, and then towards still that bottom end, but not quite the lowest. Something special about Kamloops is it's a desert, which is a little weird for Canada.
A desert, yeah. I mean, you have all kinds of different weather systems over there anyway, don't you? It's very chaotic.
Yes, we do.
What's the weather doing at the moment? Oh, well, what will it do later
raining. We're in our very, very brief rainy season.
And then does it turn hot or are you going into winter?
Yeah, so we reach 45, almost 50 degrees in the summer.
Whew. I mean, I don't think we really get that hot ever. The whole country would shut down if we got that kind of heat. I think we'd panic as well a little bit. Yep. All right, Aaron, we came to talk to you about your job as a tech. Am I right thinking you're a sim tech?
Yep.
And how did you find your role as a tech? Because none of us ever leave school or college thinking, you know what, I'm going to be a tech. How did you fall into it?
Yeah, absolutely correct. So my background is actually environmental science, and I have been working at Thompson Rivers University for 9 years now. However, I started in the sustainability office here. If anybody listening has an interest in sustainability, look up the Thompson Rivers University sustainability plan. It's pretty robust, and I've had a hand in almost all of it. But unfortunately, my position, as many positions in higher education are, was contract-based, and we ran out of funding. And so my position came to an end, and I put myself onto what we have is called an auxiliary list. And I got a phone call one day and said, hey, you've got a history as a computer technician. Do you want to work in the nursing building as a simulation technician? I did see the job posting when it was posted. I looked at it and I'm like, it sounds like something I'm not qualified for. And I came to learn that that's basically how SimTechs get hired.
It is. I don't think I've ever met anyone who's qualified, actually, especially starting off. I think everyone feels inadequate or, nervous, anxiety provoking. No one really knows what they're getting themselves into, do they, before? I mean, you must have gone straight to research. Let's see what SimTech does, that kind of thing.
I'm holding up the Comprehensive Healthcare Simulation Operations Technology and Innovative Practice book that just sits here on my desk.
A little bit of light reading.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a jump. So you're one of the... I'll say you're on the majority of technicians that don't come from a clinical background.
Yep.
How do you find that kind of the world coming into a clinical environment?
So I found it really interesting. I have a medical background because of some chronic illnesses that I've managed to deal with and a couple of hospitalizations. So a lot of the things that the students go through, the skills that they learn, I've experienced on the other end. Everything from ICU to frequent visits. I've lived through it and seen how it is used, and so it's easier for me to see how things are set up in class. So it's a really weird transferable skill that I never ever
Yeah.
expected to use for work.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to me about transferable skills. I came from the military, so I was actually one of the few clinical technicians that were coming on. So I was an army medic. And yeah, I think that's really key, especially if anybody's looking to hire a sim tech, looking actually past that and look what's transferable, because that is key.
Mhm.
Um, what does a normal day look for you then? Like what's an 8 till, is it 8 till 5, 9 till 5 kind of thing?
So at Thompson Rivers, during our winter and summer semesters, we have about 500 students in the building, and we support the programs. Years 1 through 3 are generally here, and then they go off to clinical various parts during the semester. So regular school years look like a lot of labs and skills set up. The building here is about 37,000 square feet. And across 12 lab spaces. Four of our lab spaces are like skills based labs, and so they're larger wards, like an 8 room bed. We have one that's a 16 bedroom. And so we'll set these places up mostly with like skills and test trainers. Like we've got Chester chests and the Seymour wound models, all of the equipment they would use in clinical. And each week they try different skills out, and then are tested on those as they like a class lab. And then upstairs, we've got our high fidelity simulation rooms where we set up what a SimTech would call with like a traditional simulation. And so during the week, we're supporting the lab, setting up equipment, gathering supplies. We supply the nurses with whatever they need to run the labs. And then the simulations upstairs, some of them are kind of hands off. We have a few that use simulated patients. And so some days I'll come in and I'll get an SP moulaged with makeup and get them ready for their role. Other days I'll come upstairs and turn on mannequins and get ready to run things and make sure that the simulations go smoothly for all the students and try to be super consistent because they're rolling 60 students through these simulations and they're just doing 3 or 4 people at a time. And then over the summer, it's been a little chaotic this year, where it's specialty projects and events, and it's been nonstop since class ended in April, and haven't had much of a break. But sometimes we get time for cool projects. I've been doing a bit of traveling lately around communities here, and so some days I'll come in and it's just, clean up and tidy from the chaos of the last few days. And other days it's, well, I'm going to go drive our mobile simulation lab for a couple hours to the community.
So you have like a bus, a little van.
Yeah. Yep. It's
Wow.
a 35-foot motor home that's been converted into a simulation space.
Yeah, we have something similar. So we call it the Melissa bus. Each letter stands for something: medical education, LI, simulation, something, something. And it's practically a double decker bus where the participants can sit downstairs, but
Mhm.
upstairs, is the simulation space, and this bus can
Oh,
drive
that'd be so
around.
fun.
Yeah, it drives around, parks in hospital car parks, and delivers sim. It's a brilliant little project. Is it kind of the same thing?
It sounds pretty similar. Unfortunately, we don't get double deckers here in Canada, which is really too bad. But we have a motorhome that's the class is a toy hauler. So in the back, it's been designed so that it has this big ramp that comes down, and we can load in our beds, our large equipment, and then set up. It's just an empty box in the back, so we can put up whatever we need to. And so we've got a lift in there, and right now it's got a hospital bed, and I've got a vitals monitor on the wall set up a lot like a traditional hospital practice space. And it's also being used to train the other program we have is called healthcare assistant. So the care aides, if I'm not sure how that translates to other jurisdictions, but they assist nurses with patient care. And that program is a lot of hands-on training. It's pretty fast, but we have a lot of outlying communities here in British Columbia that people find it difficult to come to Kamloops, or the commitment to travel here is such that students often don't go back to their communities. So, a big part of the push to use this is to have faculty go out to community to train groups of these care aides or nurses. And give them the opportunity to stay where they are, and then they can care for the population that's there.
Yeah, well, sounds really exciting. I mean, who's part of your team? Are you a solo tech, or do you have other technicians or educators?
Officially, we have 3 roles, and the third role has been a little bit hard to fill. So we use some like auxiliary and float positions just to help out during exams. But I have one coworker. I've been here about a year and a half, and my coworker started last September. So she's approaching 1 year here.
And how long have you been doing it for? Sorry.
Yeah, but about a year and a half.
And how are you finding it? Do you love it?
Yeah, I have really enjoyed my time as a SimTech. It's been uh, very enlightening. My education background is I had a really hard time finding a job in what I have an education in. And so this kind of came along, and it's been a ton of fun, and it's been really good for me mentally and physically. And I've just been having a pretty surprisingly wonderful time.
Is there anything that you're not too keen on? What are your what are the challenges for you?
So I wrote down scheduling. I don't like scheduling.
No,
So we have 12 lab spaces, and
I mean that's quite a
uh,
lot.
looking over at my board, um, somewhere around 10 breakout rooms. And those rooms are used for everything from just students wanting a study space to faculty needing something
Mm.
for clinical orientation. And we have community partnerships with the local hospital, and other smaller education groups will come in and use the building. And we have an RCMP training program. RCMP is our police training, and they'll use their simulation space. We have respiratory therapy that also uses it. So there's a lot of groups coming in to use the space, and we as the SimTechs are responsible for making sure that the labs are booked, prioritizing, of course, our programs. But then anytime we have an empty space, we'll fill it with whatever comes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can't say we as a nation, but from our point of view, most of us have like an administrator, someone on HR, someone who will deal with the scheduling, who's not technical, and they'll deal with what I can only assume is your admin nightmare of dealing with
Mhm.
all that stuff, so you can focus a little bit more. Is that not the case over there?
Not currently. We do have a little bit of help. I have a director above me who will handle any of like that higher level, particularly the community partnerships, if there are contracts in place or that need to be in place for having those groups come in, uh, agreements and schedules. But when it comes down to picking a room, it's still me.
Mm. I mean, how do you manage your time effectively then? I mean, if you're all day in a course, I mean, are you working after hours or beforehand to catch up?
It depends. Sometimes yes, and we kind of do the best we can. We have specific windows of time where we try to get to the emails for booking. It fluctuates with how much I'll do. Some days it's just a few minutes and I need to answer an email, and there's a booking
Mm.
here, a booking there that I need to just to the schedule. Other days, I lean on my coworkers a lot to just keep things running, and then I could be here and work on schedules and adjust things.
How is it handled if you do have to work overtime? Do you get anything called time off in lieu, or do you get paid
Yes.
extra? So you
Yeah, so
get
we get time off in lieu, and particularly lately, with we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the nursing program here, and so we were working on the weekend. And Wednesday this week, I went out to community and was back 2 hours late. So we just get time off in lieu. So I'll take a day off when the schedule allows.
well, okay. Well, it's good to hear because hate people saying, "Look, I just work late and I don't get any kind of compensation for it." It's just one of those things. It drives me a little bit bonkers, actually.
Yeah, and that's how faculty works, but they have a very complex way of balancing their workloads. But
Yeah.
they don't get time off in lieu. They just get paid what they get paid, and then the hours that it takes is the hours that it takes.
Yeah, but then that encourages them to rush or to not take their time because they're more worried about time rather than quality,
Mhm.
and that it just makes the priorities a little bit skew, doesn't it? So I have a little bit of a theory. I believe that every sim tech has a little bit of a speciality, a passion, something that they like more than anything else in the job? Do you have something that drives you?
I mean, I really like running those really intense critical care scenarios. I found a lot of value from last summer. We brought in like community partnerships through our local health authority, which is Interior Health, and they brought in doctors, respiratory therapists, emerge nurses, and some faculty trainers. We did this huge multi-room simulation about emergency pediatric airway stabilization, and that was a lot of fun because I got to run one of the stations and use pediatric Hal from Gomard. We don't use him in simulation very often, and it's really interesting to just watch how they work. I don't work in a hospital, and so most of the time the simulations are pretty chill. We're training nurses, and so they're not really high stakes. They're all fairly straightforward.
Mm.
But yeah, I like doing those simulations and knowing that I'm
I mean,
making sure that.
as far as tech
Sorry.
goes, are you a Galmard center then? Or do you mix and match, or do you have a
No,
specific
we
taste?
have a pretty big mix. So we have just shy of 40 mannequins here, and it's spread across the board. We do tend to lean towards Laerdal here, though.
Mm.
But we have not quite a perfect distribution, but we have mannequins from CAE, now Elevate, Laerdal, PCS, and Gomard.
Do you have a favorite?
Personally, I do like the way Laerdal works.
Mm. What's
Our pediatric.
what
Sorry,
part? What part of it do you like?
I like the software.
Yeah,
So like that.
just like Leap.
Yeah, I like Leap.
Yeah, I've got to admit, our centre is Laydell, and mainly because one, it was already here when I got here, so that's the first one that I learned, and two, I don't want to have to mess around with integrating different technologies and software into what's already quite a chaotic and mad centre. I would hate to have different things on different laptops, and it just
Yeah.
causes more problems. So we just kind of stick to the one. But on the back of that, we do have things like we do have some live cast mannequins as well, to pick up some.
Oh yeah, we've got a couple of those too.
Yeah,
Yep.
mainly for our younger base and older base where we can't play actors, or you standardise, because most of the time I think we're stepping away from mannequins a little bit more than we used to. Um, we prefer the real emotions of a human rather than a mannequin that's just like we feel like you get a better response off of people if they come in and you can talk to them rather than talking through a microphone and out of a speaker. Do you find the same do you have the same experiences?
Yeah, actually, when I started, it was using all of our simulations were set up with mannequins. And this last semester, there was a big push to very targeted and specific for the simulations, but where extra moulage and wounds and things that you can really only do on a mannequin weren't necessary. Sorry, not that you can't do them on a person, it's just easier on a mannequin. But we've had a number of simulations switch over to using SPs instead, and the students have really liked it. But it's very situational for what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I say, if we're going to put a tube in, or do something that we wouldn't do to a real person, that's the only time we really use mannequins these days.
Mhm.
We're trying to step away from them. Do you get involved in any of the acting or playing patients?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So more so voice acting, and a couple of times we have a nurse practitioner program here as well. It's smaller, but they're fairly intense when they do their examinations, and so I don't know if you know what a nurse practitioner is for us. It's just like one level above
Well,
nurse,
yeah.
but below a doctor. They kind of make that bridge. Nurse practitioners are able to make some levels of prescriptions and diagnoses where nurses cannot. And so they require a lot of additional knowledge, and it's an intense program. There's just 15 of them here, but when they do their exams, they needed a lot of patient actors, and I got to be one of them in the bed.
Mm.
And they did the assessments on me, and off we go. But most of the time, it's me behind the microphone.
Yeah, sometimes we just can't step away. Sometimes, unless you've got that resilience built in, who can take over from you for half an hour where you can step away. You
Yeah,
mentioned that you do a lot of moulage. How did you learn? Are you a self taught or did you go on the course?
I did a self-taught. I did learn from some of the former syntax, and I've picked up a few things from YouTube videos, and we have some manuals on how to do some things. But a lot of cooperation. The local hospital has a simulation tech that's been around for a long time, and so she's taught me quite a few things as well.
Mm. It's one of the things that I'm starting to learn. It doesn't matter where the Simtech comes from. It could be Canada or America. I did even one in Israel. We're all. It seems like there's some universal truths, and we're all just trying to do the best from what we've got. We're all just learning and teaching ourselves, and that's why the community is so important. And hopefully that's generally a little bit of scope of the podcast is to pull everyone together because you're not alone.
Mhm.
You're exactly the same as me. I can see is already the way that you're talking is like, yeah, that's the same as me. I do that. I've done that. I'm doing that. It's so weird. It blows me away that it's a universal truth about syntax. That we're wow, I just can't get over it sometimes. You'd think that maybe you'd be better trained or, you've done courses, but we're all just the same. We're all just trying to get along, aren't we?
Yep.
You mentioned that you're working on some kind of projects. What kind of projects you're working on?
So the big one that's been occupying most of my time is that mobile simulation lab. We've been trying to do it on a relatively limited budget, and using we've got a secondhand motor home, and we're putting minimal equipment into it, and so it's an older vehicle, so do a lot of maintenance. My previous role at the university had a bit of fleet management aspect to it, so it's kind of ironic that I'm back to managing a vehicle again. But it's been a lot of fun to just figure out if they want to do a simulation, how do we put that into our mobile unit, and how
Where
do we
did
set
you
it up
uh,
to.
where did you get the idea for it? Who thought of that?
So it was actually a faculty driven thought. They wanted to have something that they could bring to community to teach skills. And they kind of like gave us the idea, here's some money, go figure it out.
Ooh, how much money did they give you?
$200,000.
Ooh, and so how did you go about how did you think about shopping? Did you get like these are the objectives? This is kind of what you've got to cover, or did you just get to go and do what you want to do?
Yeah, the main focus was getting a vehicle first. And once we had the vehicle, then we could identify how much we had extra on top of that. And so it was a matter of picking the mobile simulation space. We wanted the idea was to get a motorhome. We would have used like a cube van or something like that if we had to. But having something where you had like a living space or a couch space where we can have those debrief and brief, that portion of it was pretty important. So having the dual function was really handy. And then from there, we had money left over. We identified what we needed for renovations and decoration, just like the outside painting job, adding equipment and mannequins to the unit. And then we've got a little money left over still. So we're still looking at ways we
Mm.
can make it better.
When do you have to be up and running?
It's already being used. We've used it for a couple of recruitment trips, going around to some of the rural hospitals just to show off the space and get their thoughts on it. And we've got some really good take up from local areas there. They don't have their own simulation space, so we can bring ours over and have a day where we can, do critical care scenarios or whatever they need. One of the local hospitals really wants to do maternity simulations.
Yeah, well, I've almost thought of a second episode for us, Aaron, later on. I'd love to invite you back and maybe talking to some of the stuff that you're doing, maybe a little bit of the evaluation. Sounds like a great little project.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Do you get any VR opportunities? You got any headsets over there?
We do have a couple of Oculus Quest 2 models. They don't get a ton of use. However, we do have a couple of faculty that are really interested in more of the software side of simulation, particularly both AI and VR. So we have done a number of virtual simulations, not virtual reality simulations. So we've done a number of just like online videos. But we do have some of these programs. I actually just came back last week from the CanSim conference at BCIT, where they had a whole bunch of VR and virtual simulation content. There's a really, really interesting new company out of Glasgow, actually, that they use virtual reality to simulate dementia, which is a rather novel approach. Everybody else is doing AI to be,
Yeah.
here's your sim room, here's our U equipment.
Yeah, I
And
think I've
it's something that I could set up.
yeah. So went to a conference over here. It was in Scotland as well, and I think I've actually put the headset on, and I think it plays with like your vision and your hearing as the instructors
Yep,
moving it all around. Is that the right one?
that sounds like it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just nice to see from their point of view for a change in it 'cause you never get to kind of experience that.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a great way of using it. I actually forgot about them. Now that you've mentioned that, I brought them down. I have to invite them on to come and talk about it. Um, so what's next for you then, Aaron? Are you a SimTech forever now, or what's on your horizon?
I'm pretty content where I am. Um, we have a pretty fancy simulation space. This building was only built and occupied in 2021, so it's pretty new. And about 3 months into my role as a simulation technician, I suddenly found myself as the senior simulation technician.
Mhm.
So I very, very quickly got thrust into the role of kind of quasi leadership. And I seem to be doing fairly well. And the faculty and leadership here really supports what I'm doing. And so I feel like I'm in a really good place and I'm content to stay here for a while.
Oh, that's good. Is there like do you see a career path leading to where you want to go? Because I know a lot of technicians that I speak to, it's very bit of a dead end once you get to a certain place. Do you see a path that you'd like to go down?
I can see where I'd like to go. Um, I think where it's in larger centers like what we have here, rather than like for example a hospital where you have one or two simulation rooms, we have lots of lab spaces and there's opportunity for diversification within our simulation roles. And so we could look at making new roles or kind of like what the other centers in our province are doing, where they have leadership roles or specialized simulation technicians that stick to certain things and they start to get a little more specific. Right now, though, there's just the simulation technician, and there's maybe the possibility in a decade that I could move up to something like the director position. But yeah, I don't have a clear look on what's coming. And the technicians that were here before me, they were here 4 or 5 years, and they're like, What's next?"
Yeah, I feel like that is one of the main problems at the moment is, where next for us, until again it's like dead man's shoes until your senior or your manager moves out, there's very little for us to go to. And I know, well, like I said, I don't know much about where you are in Canada, but I suspect hospitals are few and far between, or universities. There's not that many close by. So once you find your niche where you can work, to get another job for us, sometimes you've got to move and go where the job takes you. Would you ever consider, maybe moving somewhere else for a job?
Yeah, actually, I've been kind of eyeing Europe, not very seriously, but it's a possibility. Be kind of fun, especially given the potential future of I don't know where my country is going, but right now
Mhm.
everything seems okay. Um, but yeah, it'd be kind of fun to live in Europe for a bit. I wouldn't move to the States, just personal choice.
Yeah.
But there are a few other simulation centers within the province, and there's a collection of, I'd say, probably about 60 simulation technicians and operations specialists that we're all kind of connected to. So most of us are spread across, education facilities. There are several local health authorities that are all either building or running their own simulation centers. And then there are also like rural health authorities that are starting to develop simulation programs. So it's growing in BC quite rapidly.
How do you maintain your networks out there? Are you all part of a WhatsApp group like we are, or do you meet up regularly on meetings or anything like that?
We do have, we just started our own little BC simulation operations group, and we meet. Most of us have teams, so we meet on Teams roughly once a month, and we've built a little Discord group where we can share content. Uh, Quite inspired by the Facebook simulation technician group, but definitely smaller.
Yeah, like you said, we like to work in silos, don't we?
Yeah.
Because we all think that that's it, but the rabbit hole goes quite deep, doesn't it? As we know.
Mhm. Fortunately, due to the nature of how our health authorities work, we're all provincially funded, and we share as much as we possibly can, be it equipment or knowledge or time or space or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for us. We're always sharing, and I think some people find sharing a little bit awkward because they're giving away their intellectual property. But I think the majority of people have come into the thought that actually sharing is the way forward for us.
Yeah.
We're although we won, the NHS is one trust. It's all broken down into different ones, so it's separate organisations really, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what we're trying to do is bring everyone together. Aaron, as I knew at the time would fly by, just talking to you, we're almost up to. Is there anything like you would like to add before we sign off?
I asked my wife what I should write down for on the questionnaire. It says, "What's one piece of equipment you'd recommend to every simulation technician?" And I had a hard time answering it. And then I looked over at my wife, and I'm like, "What should I write down?" She's like, "A soldering iron."
Oh yeah.
And funny story, we brought our simulation out to a community, and our pediatric Hal, the charger in his foot, got pulled out, and the wire broke, and it would have ruined the whole day. He was about to shut down. So I ran into the high school and found their robotics instructor. I'm like, "Can I borrow a soldering iron to fix this?" Because we're halfway through the day and the battery's dead. So I made a quick soldering fix and got the mannequin back up and running, and the day continued. And so there's going to be a soldering iron in my portable toolkit now.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's top notch tech in there.
Mhm.
It's plus it takes a lot of courage to be able to open up a mannequin and start soldering away because they're not cheap, are they really? You know,
No,
uh, and
I mean,
you know.
fortunately, it's just the charging cable. I'm not getting into anything
Mhm.
super fancy, but
Well,
yeah,
you just show that you've got that flexibility and the outside box thinking because just takes, like you said, just one little wire and the whole show's done, isn't it?
yep,
All right, Aaron, it's been great chatting to you. It's just nice seeing how the different techs from around the world are exactly the same as everybody else.
yeah.
We're all in the same big boat that's going nowhere. All right, Aaron. Well, thank you very much, buddy. All the best.
Thanks, Greg. I'll talk to you soon.
And that wraps up on today's episode of the SimTech podcast. A huge thank you to Aaron for joining me all the way from Canada. It was brilliant to hear how about the work he's doing and get a glimpse into how simulation is being delivered on the other side of the Atlantic. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss a conversation. Thanks again for listening, and as always, stay curious, stay connected, and keep simulating.